Chapter 1. The ancient throne room was shrouded in darkness, save for the faint flicker of torchlight dancing upon the crumbling walls. Aria, a young adventurer, crept cautiously through the shadows, her heart pounding in her chest. She had come seeking the legendary Forgotten Throne, rumored to hold untold power and secrets. As she approached the center of the room, a sudden gust of wind extinguished the torches, plunging her into complete darkness. Aria froze, her senses heightened, straining to detect any signs of danger. Then, a ghostly whisper echoed through the chamber, sending chills down her spine. "Who dares disturb the Forgotten Throne?" the voice demanded, its tone both ancient and menacing. Aria summoned her courage and spoke, her voice trembling slightly. "I am Aria, a seeker of knowledge and truth. I have come to learn the secrets of this throne." The whispers intensified, swirling around her like an ethereal whirlwind. Suddenly, a soft glow emanated from the throne itself, revealing its intricate carvings and ancient symbols. Aria approached cautiously, her eyes wide with wonder and trepidation. As she drew closer, the whispers coalesced into a single voice, powerful and commanding. "The secrets of the Forgotten Throne are not meant for mortal eyes," it warned. "Turn back now, or face the consequences of your curiosity." But Aria was determined. She had come too far to turn back now. With a deep breath, she reached out and touched the throne, her fingers tracing the worn stone. In that instant, a blinding light engulfed her, and the whispers grew to a deafening roar. Aria felt herself being pulled into a vortex of energy, her body twisting and turning as she was transported to another realm. When the light faded, she found herself standing in a vast alien landscape, unlike anything she had ever seen before. The whispers had vanished, replaced by an eerie silence. Aria looked around, trying to get her bearings in this strange new world. She knew that her journey had only just begun, and that the secrets of the Forgotten Throne would not be easily unlocked. With a determined step forward, Aria began her quest, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Little did she know that the whispers of the Forgotten Throne would lead her on an adventure that would change her life and the fate of the world forever. Chapter 2. Aria found herself standing on a barren, rocky landscape, the sky above her a swirling mix of deep purple and crimson hues. The air was thick with an unfamiliar energy that made her skin tingle. In the distance, she could see towering spires of an ancient city, its architecture unlike anything she had ever encountered. As she took a tentative step forward, a sudden gust of wind whipped around her, carrying with it a faint whisper. "Seek the path of the forgotten," the voice urged, its words echoing in her mind. Intrigued and determined, Aria set off towards the mysterious city, her footsteps crunching on the gravel beneath her feet. As she drew closer, she noticed that the city's walls were adorned with intricate carvings and glyphs, their meanings lost to time. Entering the city's gates, Aria found herself in a labyrinth of narrow, winding streets. The buildings towered above her, their facades adorned with strange, glowing symbols that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. She wandered through the maze-like streets, searching for any clues that might lead her to the path of the forgotten. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, startling Aria. It was an old man, his face weathered, and his eyes filled with wisdom. "You are not the first to seek the path," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "But be warned, young adventurer, the journey ahead is fraught with danger and deception." Aria met his gaze, her curiosity piqued. "Who are you, and what do you know of the path of the forgotten?" The old man chuckled, a glint of amusement in his eyes. "I am but a humble guide, tasked with aiding those who seek the truth. The path of the forgotten is a trial, a test of your resolve and your ability to unravel the mysteries of this realm." He reached into his robes and produced a small, ancient-looking key. "Take this," he said, pressing the key into Aria's palm. "It will grant you access to the first of many challenges that await you on the path. But remember, the whispers of the Forgotten Throne are not to be taken lightly. They will guide you, but they will also test you." With those cryptic words, the old man vanished, leaving Aria alone once more in the strange city. She looked down at the key in her hand, its surface covered in intricate engravings. Taking a deep breath, she set off deeper into the city, ready to face whatever trials the path of the forgotten had in store for her. As she walked, the whispers grew louder, urging her onward, deeper into the heart of the forgotten realm. Aria knew that the secrets she sought would not come easily, but she was determined to uncover the truth behind the forgotten throne and the mysterious world she now found herself in. Chapter 3. As Aria ventured deeper into the heart of the ancient city, the whispers grew more insistent, guiding her through the winding streets and narrow alleyways. The key in her hand seemed to pulse with a strange energy, as if it were connected to the very fabric of this forgotten realm. She soon found herself standing before a massive, ornate door, its surface covered in glyphs and symbols that glowed with an eerie light. Aria hesitated for a moment, the weight of the old man's warning heavy on her mind. But the whispers urged her forward, and she knew that she could not turn back now. With a deep breath, Aria inserted the key into the lock, and the door swung open with a groaning creak. Beyond lay a vast circular chamber, its walls lined with towering statues of ancient beings, their faces twisted in expressions of anguish and despair. In the center of the room stood a raised platform, upon which rested a single, glowing orb. Aria approached cautiously, the whispers now a deafening cacophony in her mind. As she drew closer, the orb began to pulse with a sickly green light, and a voice echoed through the chamber. "You who seek the path of the forgotten," it boomed, "prove your worth and face the first trial." Suddenly, the statues around the room began to move, their stone limbs creaking and groaning as they stepped down from their pedestals. Aria watched in horror as they advanced upon her, their eyes glowing with the same sickly green light as the orb. She reached for her sword, her heart pounding in her chest as the first statue lunged at her. Aria dodged the blow, her blade slicing through the air and striking the statue's arm. To her surprise, the stone crumbled away, revealing a pulsing crystalline core beneath. Realization dawned on Aria, and she knew what she had to do. With renewed determination, she danced around the room, her sword flashing as she struck at the statue's cores, shattering them one by one. The whispers grew louder, urging her on, and Aria felt a strange power coursing through her veins. As the last statue crumbled to dust, the orb on the platform began to glow even brighter, bathing the room in an eerie, green light. Aria approached it cautiously, her hand outstretched. As her fingers brushed against its surface, a jolt of energy surged through her body, and the world around her began to shift and change. When the light faded, Aria found herself standing in a new chamber, its walls adorned with intricate murals depicting scenes of ancient battles and long-forgotten heroes. The whispers were quieter now, but still present, guiding her onward. Aria knew that this was only the beginning, that the path of the forgotten would test her in ways she could never have imagined. But she was ready, her heart filled with a newfound courage and determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them head-on and uncover the secrets of the forgotten throne, no matter the cost. Chapter 4. As Aria ventured deeper into the heart of the ancient city, the whispers grew more insistent, guiding her through the winding streets and narrow alleyways. The key in her hand seemed to pulse with a strange energy, as if it were connected to the very fabric of this forgotten realm. She soon found herself standing before a massive, ornate door, its surface covered in glyphs and symbols that glowed with an eerie light. Aria hesitated for a moment, the weight of the old man's warning heavy on her mind, but the whispers urged her forward, and she knew that she could not turn back now. With a deep breath, Aria inserted the key into the lock, and the door swung open with a groaning creak. Beyond lay a vast, circular chamber, its walls lined with towering statues of ancient beings, their faces twisted in expressions of anguish and despair. In the center of the room stood a raised platform, upon which rested a single, glowing orb. Aria approached cautiously, the whispers now a deafening cacophony in her mind. As she drew closer, the orb began to pulse with a sickly green light, and a voice echoed through the chamber. "You who seek the path of the forgotten," it boomed, "prove your worth and face the first trial." Suddenly, the statues around the room began to move, their stone limbs creaking and groaning as they stepped down from their pedestals. Aria watched in horror as they advanced upon her, their eyes glowing with the same sickly green light as the orb. She reached for her sword, her heart pounding in her chest as the first statue lunged at her. Aria dodged the blow, her blade slicing through the air and striking the statue's arm. To her surprise, the stone crumbled away, revealing a pulsing, crystalline core beneath. Realization dawned on Aria, and she knew what she had to do. With renewed determination, she danced around the room, her sword flashing as she struck at the statue's cores, shattering them one by one. The whispers grew louder, urging her on, and Aria felt a strange power coursing through her veins. As the last statue crumbled to dust, the orb on the platform began to glow even brighter, bathing the room in an eerie green light. Aria approached it cautiously, her hand outstretched. As her fingers brushed against its surface, a jolt of energy surged through her body, and the world around her began to shift and change. When the light faded, Aria found herself standing in a new chamber, its walls adorned with intricate murals depicting scenes of ancient battles and long-forgotten heroes. The whispers were quieter now, but still present, guiding her onward. Aria studied the murals, her eyes widening as she began to piece together the story they told. The images depicted a great war between two powerful races, one human and one alien. The humans, despite their valor and determination, were clearly outmatched by the superior technology and abilities of their adversaries. Yet, as she followed the murals around the room, Aria noticed a shift in the narrative. The humans, through their ingenuity and unwavering spirit, began to turn the tide of the war. They developed new weapons and strategies, adapting to the challenges before them and slowly gaining ground against their foes. The final mural showed a decisive battle, with the humans emerging victorious against all odds. At the center of the image stood a figure holding a glowing scepter, the very same one that had been depicted on the Forgotten Throne. Aria realized that this chamber held the key to understanding the true nature of her quest. The path of the Forgotten was not just a series of trials, but a testament to the resilience and strength of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming adversity. As she stood there, lost in thought, a soft click echoed through the chamber. A hidden door swung open, revealing a narrow passageway that led deeper into the heart of the ancient city. Chapter 5. As Aria stepped through the hidden door, the narrow passageway led her into a dimly lit corridor. The walls were lined with ancient carvings, depicting scenes of great battles and heroic figures. The whispers grew louder, echoing off the stone walls and guiding her deeper into the heart of the city. The corridor opened up into a vast, circular chamber, its high ceiling supported by intricately carved pillars. In the center of the room stood a towering statue of a human warrior, his sword raised in a defiant gesture. At the base of the statue lay a pedestal, upon which rested an ancient tome, its cover adorned with strange symbols and glyphs. Aria approached the pedestal, her curiosity piqued by the mysterious book. As she reached out to touch it, the whispers suddenly fell silent, and a deep, resonant voice filled the chamber. "Seeker of the Forgotten Throne," it boomed, "to proceed on your journey, you must first understand the true nature of the trials that lie ahead." The tome began to glow with a soft, golden light, and as Aria opened its pages, the words within seemed to come alive, dancing before her eyes. The book told the story of an ancient civilization, one that had reached the pinnacle of technological advancement and knowledge. However, their hubris and lust for power had led them down a dark path, and they had created a weapon of unimaginable destruction. The weapon, known as the Devourer, had the power to consume entire worlds, and the ancient civilization had used it to conquer and enslave countless races across the galaxy. But their reign of terror had come to an abrupt end, when a coalition of humans and other oppressed races had risen up against them, wielding the power of the Forgotten Throne. The Forgotten Throne, Aria learned, was not just a symbol of power, but a conduit for the collective will and determination of those who had fought against the ancient oppressors. It had the power to amplify the strengths and abilities of its wielder, allowing them to stand against even the most formidable of foes. As Aria turned the final page of the tome, the chamber began to shake and rumble. The statue of the human warrior began to move, its stone eyes flickering with an otherworldly light. It spoke, its voice deep and powerful. "You who seek the power of the Forgotten Throne," it intoned, "must prove your worth by facing the trials that lie ahead. Only those with true courage, wisdom, and compassion shall be deemed worthy to wield its power." With those words, the statue returned to its original position, and the chamber fell silent once more. Aria stood there for a moment, her mind reeling with the knowledge she had gained. She knew now that the path of the forgotten was not just a series of challenges, but a test of her very soul. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready to face whatever trials lay ahead. As she did so, the whispers returned, louder and more insistent than ever before. They seemed to be urging her onward, guiding her towards her destiny. Aria followed the whispers, her footsteps echoing through the ancient halls. She knew that the road ahead would be long and perilous, but she was determined to see it through to the end. For she knew that the fate of not just herself, but of all humanity, rested on her shoulders, and she would not let them down. As she stepped through another doorway, Aria found herself in a new chamber, its walls adorned with glowing crystals that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. In the center of the room stood a shimmering portal, its surface rippling like water. The whispers grew to a crescendo, and Aria knew that this was the next step on her journey, the gateway to the trials that would test her mettle and determine her worthiness to claim the power of the Forgotten Throne. Chapter 6. The Portal of Trials. Aria approached the shimmering portal, her heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. The whispers swirled around her, urging her forward, their voices filled with a sense of urgency and purpose. She reached out and touched the rippling surface, feeling a strange tingling sensation spread through her fingertips. In an instant, the world around her dissolved into a kaleidoscope of colors and shapes, and she found herself hurtling through a vortex of energy. The whispers grew louder, their words becoming clearer with each passing moment. "The trials await, Seeker," they intoned. "Prove your worth, and the power of the Forgotten Throne shall be yours." Suddenly, the vortex vanished, and Aria found herself standing in a vast, open space. The ground beneath her feet was made of a strange, translucent material that seemed to pulse with an inner light. The sky above was a deep, inky black, dotted with countless stars that shimmered and danced like diamonds. Before her stood 3 towering pillars, each one carved with intricate symbols and glyphs. As she approached them, the whispers grew louder, and she realized that each pillar represented one of the 3 trials she would have to face. The first pillar was adorned with images of battles and warriors, their faces contorted in fierce determination. The whispers spoke of the trial of courage, where Aria would have to face her deepest fears and overcome seemingly impossible odds. The second pillar bore images of scrolls and tomes, their pages filled with arcane knowledge and ancient wisdom. The whispers spoke of the trial of wisdom, where Aria would have to use her intellect and intuition to solve puzzles and riddles that had confounded even the greatest minds of the past. The third pillar was covered in images of outstretched hands and compassionate faces, their expressions filled with empathy and understanding. The whispers spoke of the trial of compassion, where Aria would have to put aside her own desires and needs to help those who were suffering and in need. As she stood before the pillars, Aria felt a sense of determination wash over her. She knew that the trials ahead would be difficult, but she was ready to face them head-on. She had come too far to turn back now, and the power of the Forgotten Throne was within her grasp. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready to begin the first trial. The whispers swirled around her, their voices filled with encouragement and support. "Remember, Seeker," they whispered. "The power of the Forgotten Throne is not just about strength or skill. It is about the strength of your heart, the depth of your wisdom, and the compassion you show to others. These are the qualities that will guide you through the trials and lead you to your destiny." With those words ringing in her ears, Aria approached the first pillar, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. She knew that the path to the Forgotten Throne would be long and arduous, but she was determined to see it through to the end. For the sake of all those who had come before her, and for the future of all those who would come after, she would not fail. Chapter 7. The Trial of Courage. Aria stood before the first pillar, the images of battles and warriors etched into its surface. The whispers grew louder, urging her to step forward and face the trial of courage. She took a deep breath and placed her hand on the pillar, feeling a surge of energy course through her body. In an instant, the world around her shifted, and she found herself standing on a battlefield, the sounds of clashing swords and screams of pain filling the air. The ground was littered with the bodies of fallen warriors, their armor glinting in the eerie light that seemed to emanate from the sky above. Aria looked down and saw that she was wearing a suit of armor, a gleaming sword held tightly in her hand. She could feel the weight of the blade, the power it held, and knew that this was no ordinary weapon. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a towering warrior clad in black armor, his face hidden behind a grotesque mask. He raised his sword, pointing it directly at Aria, and let out a terrifying roar that shook the ground beneath their feet. Aria felt a wave of fear wash over her, but she pushed it aside, knowing that she had to face this challenge head-on. She raised her own sword, ready to defend herself against the monstrous warrior. The two clashed, their blades meeting in a shower of sparks. Aria could feel the strength of her opponent, the raw power behind each of his blows, but she refused to back down, drawing on every ounce of courage and determination she possessed. As they fought, the whispers swirled around her, their voices filled with encouragement and support. "Remember, Seeker," they whispered. "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. You have the strength within you to overcome any obstacle, no matter how daunting it may seem." With those words ringing in her ears, Aria redoubled her efforts, her sword flashing in the eerie light. She ducked and weaved, parrying her opponent's blows and striking out with her own. The battle seemed to stretch on for an eternity, both warriors locked in a deadly dance of steel and skill. Finally, with a mighty cry, Aria delivered a final, crushing blow, her sword piercing through her opponent's armor and striking him down. The warrior let out a final, little agonized roar before crumpling to the ground, his sword clattering to the earth beside him. Aria stood over her fallen foe, her chest heaving with exertion. She had done it. She had faced her fears and emerged victorious, proving her courage and determination in the face of overwhelming odds. As she caught her breath, the world around her began to shift once more, the battlefield fading away to be replaced by the vast open space where the three pillars stood. The first pillar now glowed with an inner light, the symbols and glyphs carved into its surface, pulsing with energy. Aria approached the second pillar, the whispers guiding her forward. She knew that the trial of wisdom lay ahead, and she was ready to face whatever challenges it might bring. With a sense of renewed purpose and determination, she placed her hand on the pillar, ready to begin the next leg of her journey towards the Forgotten Throne. Chapter 8: The Trial of Wisdom. As the glow from the first pillar faded, Aria turned her attention to the second pillar, its surface adorned with intricate symbols and glyphs that seemed to shift and change before her eyes. She approached it cautiously, the whispers growing louder with each step. "Seeker," they murmured, their voices echoing in her mind. "The trial of wisdom awaits you. To claim the power of the Forgotten Throne, you must prove your understanding, your insight, and your ability to see beyond the surface of things." Aria placed her hand on the pillar, feeling a sudden rush of energy that made her head spin. When the sensation passed, she found herself standing in a vast library, its shelves stretching as far as the eye could see. The air was heavy with the scent of old parchment and dust, and the only sound was the soft rustling of pages in an unseen breeze. In the center of the library stood a pedestal, upon which rested an ancient tome, its cover worn and faded with age. Aria approached it, her heart pounding in her chest. As she drew closer, the whispers grew more insistent, urging her to open the book and read its contents. With trembling hands, Aria lifted the cover, revealing pages filled with strange symbols and glyphs that seemed to dance before her eyes. She squinted, trying to make sense of the alien language, but the more she looked, the more the symbols seemed to shift and change, refusing to yield their secrets. Frustrated, Aria closed the book, her mind racing. She knew that the answer to the trial of wisdom lay within its pages, but how was she supposed to decipher its meaning? As if in response to her thoughts, the whispers spoke again. "Seeker," they said, their voices gentle but firm. "Wisdom is not about knowing all the answers, but about asking the right questions. Look beyond the surface and trust in your own understanding. Aria took a deep breath, closing her eyes and letting the whispers guide her. She thought back to the battles she had fought, the challenges she had faced, and the lessons she had learned along the way. Slowly, the pieces began to fall into place, and she realized that the symbols in the book were not just a language, but a reflection of the world around her. She opened her eyes, looking at the book with new understanding. The symbols were not just letters, but representations of the elements, the forces that shaped the world. Fire, water, earth, and air, all working together in harmony to create something greater than the sum of their parts. With this realization, the symbols on the page began to glow, their meaning becoming clear. Aria read the words aloud, her voice ringing with newfound confidence. The power of the Forgotten Throne lies not in its strength, but in its ability to unite. Only by bringing together the diverse strengths and abilities of all can true wisdom be achieved. As the last word left her lips, the library around her began to fade, replaced once again by the vast, open space and the 3 towering pillars. The second pillar now glowed with the same inner light as the first, acknowledging Aria's success in the trial of wisdom. Aria turned to face the final pillar, the whispers swirling around her like a gentle breeze. She knew that the trial of compassion lay ahead, and she was ready to face it with an open heart and a clear mind. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, ready to embrace whatever challenges the final trial might bring. Chapter 9: The Trial of Compassion. As Aria approached the final pillar, the whispers grew louder, their voices filled with a mixture of encouragement and warning. She placed her hand on the pillar's smooth surface, feeling a sudden surge of energy that seemed to reach into the depths of her soul. In an instant, the vast open space vanished, replaced by a dark, cramped chamber. The air was thick with the stench of suffering and despair, and the only light came from a single, flickering torch on the wall. Aria's eyes adjusted to the gloom, and she saw a figure huddled in the corner, their body racked with sobs. She approached cautiously, her heart aching with compassion for the suffering soul before her. As she drew closer, the figure lifted their head, revealing a face that was both strange and familiar. It was a being from one of the races that had been enslaved by the ancient oppressors, their features twisted by years of torment and abuse. "Please," the being whispered, their voice hoarse with pain. "Help me." Aria knelt beside the figure, her hand reaching out to offer comfort. But as she touched their shoulder, the being's form shifted and changed, transforming into a monstrous creature filled with rage and hatred. The creature lunged at Aria, its claws tearing at her flesh. She stumbled back, her mind reeling with confusion and fear. How could she show compassion to a being that seemed to embody the very essence of evil? As if in answer to her question, the whispers spoke again. "Seeker," they murmured, their voices filled with gentle understanding. Compassion is not about condoning evil, but about recognizing the pain that lies beneath it. Only by understanding the suffering of others can we hope to heal the wounds of the past. Aria closed her eyes, letting the whispers guide her. She thought of the ancient oppressors and the terrible deeds they had committed, but she also thought of the beings they had enslaved and the generations of pain and trauma they had endured. With a deep breath, Aria opened her eyes and looked at the creature before her. She saw past the monstrous exterior to the wounded soul that lay within. And in that moment, she understood that the creature's rage was born of a deep, unimaginable pain. "I see you," Aria said, her voice filled with compassion. "I see your pain, and I understand. You are not alone." As the words left her lips, the creature's form began to shift once more, transforming back into the huddled figure from before. But this time, there was a glimmer of hope in their eyes, a flicker of light in the darkness. Aria reached out once more, offering her hand in friendship and understanding. The figure took it, their grip weak but determined. Together, they rose to their feet, ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. As the chamber began to fade around them, Aria felt a rush of energy from the third pillar, acknowledging her success in the trial of compassion. She had proven herself worthy, not just in strength and wisdom, but in the depth of her empathy and understanding. With all 3 trials complete, Aria found herself standing once more before the Forgotten Throne. the whispers swirling around her like a chorus of hope and possibility. She knew that the true test was still to come, but she was ready to face it with all the courage, wisdom, and compassion she had gained on her journey. As she stepped forward to claim her place on the throne, Aria felt a sense of purpose and destiny that went beyond her own desires. She was not just a seeker of power, but a beacon of hope for all those who had been forgotten and oppressed. And with the strength of the forgotten throne behind her, she knew that anything was possible. Chapter 10: The Final Test. As Aria stood before the forgotten throne, the whispers grew to a crescendo, their voices filled with anticipation and reverence. The throne itself seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, as if it were alive and waiting for its rightful heir. Aria took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever lay ahead. She had faced the trials of courage, wisdom, and compassion, but she knew that the true test was still to come. As she stepped forward, a light erupted from the throne, engulfing her in its radiance. Aria felt herself being pulled forward, her body and mind merging with the very essence of the forgotten throne. In that moment, she saw the entirety of the ancient civilization's history unfold before her eyes. She witnessed the rise of the oppressors, the creation of the devourer, and the terrible suffering they had inflicted upon the enslaved races. But she also saw the resilience and determination of those who had fought back, the heroes who had wielded the power of the forgotten throne to turn the tide of the war. She felt their strength and courage flowing through her, a legacy passed down through the ages. As the visions faded, Aria found herself standing once more in the throne room, but everything had changed. The whispers were gone, replaced by a profound silence that seemed to hold the weight of the world. Before her, a figure materialized, their form shimmering with an ethereal light. It was the spirit of the ancient warrior whose statue she had seen in the earlier chamber, the one who had first wielded the power of the forgotten throne. "Seeker," the warrior spoke, their voice echoing through the chamber. "You have proven yourself worthy of the forgotten throne, but there is one final test you must face." Aria nodded, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. "I am ready," she said, her voice steady and strong. The warrior smiled, a gentle expression that seemed to hold the wisdom of the ages. "The final test is not one of strength or skill, but of the heart. You must choose, Seeker, between the power of the forgotten throne and the fate of those who have been forgotten and oppressed." Aria's mind raced with the implications of the warrior's words. She had come so far, had fought so hard to claim the power of the throne. But was that power worth the suffering of those who had been left behind? She closed her eyes, letting the memories of her journey wash over her. She thought of the courage she had shown in battle, the wisdom she had gained in the library, and the compassion she had shown to the suffering soul in the cramped chamber. She opened her eyes, meeting the warrior's gaze with a fierce determination. "I choose the forgotten and the oppressed," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. "The power of the forgotten throne is not meant for me alone, but for all those who have been left behind. I will use it to bring hope and healing to the world, to unite the diverse strengths and abilities of all races, and to create a future where no one is forgotten or oppressed." The warrior's smile widened, their form beginning to fade into the light. "Well chosen, Seeker," they whispered. "The power of the forgotten throne is yours, to wield in the service of all those who have been forgotten and oppressed." As the warrior vanished, Aria felt a surge of power unlike anything she had ever known. It was the power of the forgotten throne, but it was also the power of the countless souls who had fought and suffered and hoped for a better world. With a deep breath, Aria turned to face the entrance of the throne room, ready to begin her true journey. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that there would be challenges and obstacles at every turn. But she also knew that she was not alone, that the strength of the forgotten and the oppressed would always be with her. And so, with a heart full of courage, wisdom, and compassion, Aria stepped forward into the light, ready to face whatever lay ahead in her quest to bring hope and healing to the world. Chapter 11: The Journey Begins. As the light of the forgotten throne faded, Aria found herself standing once more in the ancient throne room. the power of the forgotten and oppressed thrumming through her veins. She knew that her journey was far from over, that the true test of her worth was only just beginning. With a deep breath, Aria turned to face the entrance of the throne room, ready to take her first steps into the world beyond. But as she did so, a figure emerged from the shadows, their form cloaked in a dark, hooded robe. "Who are you?" Aria asked, her hand instinctively reaching for her weapon. The figure raised their hands in a gesture of peace. "Fear not, Seeker," they said, their voice low and calm. "I am a friend, one who has watched your journey from afar." Aria relaxed slightly but kept her guard up. "Why have you come here?" she asked. The figure stepped forward, lowering their hood to reveal the face of an old woman, her features lined with age and wisdom. "I have come to offer my guidance," she said. "The road ahead will be long and difficult, and you will need all the help you can get." Aria nodded, sensing the truth in the woman's words. "What must I do?" she asked. The woman smiled, a twinkle in her eye. "You must gather allies," she said. "The power of the Forgotten Throne is great, but it cannot stand alone. You will need the strength of others, the wisdom of those who have walked this path before you." Aria thought of the trials she had faced, the lessons she had learned. She knew that the woman was right, that she could not face the challenges ahead alone. "Where do I begin?" she asked. The woman reached into the folds of her robe, pulling out a small, glowing crystal. "Take this," she said, pressing it into Aria's hand. "It will guide you to those who can help you, those who share your vision of a world where no one is forgotten or oppressed." Aria took the crystal, feeling its warmth and energy pulsing against her skin. She knew that it was a powerful tool, one that could lead her to the allies she needed. "Thank you," she said, bowing her head in gratitude. The woman smiled, her eyes shining with a deep, ancient wisdom. "Go forth, Seeker," she said. "The world is waiting for you, and the forgotten and oppressed are counting on you to lead them to a better future." With those words, the woman vanished, leaving Aria alone once more in the throne room. But she was not afraid, for she knew that she carried the strength of countless generations with her, the power of the Forgotten Throne burning bright within her heart. And so, with the crystal in her hand, and a fierce determination in her step, Aria set forth into the world, ready to gather her allies and begin the true journey of her destiny. She knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, that there would be obstacles and challenges at every turn. But she also knew that she was not alone, that the strength of the forgotten and oppressed would always be with her, guiding her forward into the light. Chapter 12. The Path of Light. Aria stepped out of the ancient throne room, the crystal in her hand pulsing with a gentle, guiding light. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her destiny settling upon her shoulders. The world beyond the forgotten city was vast and unknown, but she knew that she could not falter now. As she walked through the crumbling streets, the crystal began to glow brighter, pulling her towards the outskirts of the city. Aria followed its lead, her heart racing with anticipation and uncertainty. What allies would she find? What challenges would she face? The crystal led her to a small, hidden path, overgrown with vines and ancient trees. Aria pushed through the foliage, her determination never wavering. As she emerged on the other side, she found herself in a clearing, the crystal's light now shining like a beacon in the center. Suddenly, figures began to emerge from the shadows of the clearing. They were a diverse group, each bearing the marks of their own struggles and triumphs. A battle-hardened warrior, a wise old sage, a young girl with fire in her eyes, they all stepped forward, drawn to the light of the crystal. Aria stood tall, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "I am Aria, seeker of the Forgotten Throne. I have come to gather allies, to unite the forgotten and oppressed against those who would keep us in darkness." The warrior stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with respect. "I am Ran of the Broken Blade clan. We have fought against the oppressors for generations, but we have never had a leader like you. We will stand with you, Seeker." The sage nodded, her wrinkled face creasing with a smile. "I am Nara, keeper of the ancient knowledge. I have seen the rise and fall of many empires, but never have I seen a light as bright as the one you carry. I will guide you with my wisdom, Seeker." The young girl, no more than a child, stepped forward, her voice trembling with emotion. I am Lena, and I have seen my people suffer for too long. I may be small, but I have a fierce heart. I will fight beside you, Seeker." One by one, the allies pledged their support, their voices joining together in a chorus of hope and determination. Aria felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes, overwhelmed by the strength and courage of those around her. As the sun began to set over the clearing, Aria knew that this was only the beginning. The path ahead would be long and treacherous, filled with danger and uncertainty. But with her allies by her side and the power of the Forgotten Throne within her, she knew that they could face anything. And so, as the light of the crystal faded and the shadows of the night crept in, Aria and her allies set forth on the path of light, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They knew that the road would be difficult, that there would be sacrifice and loss along the way. But they also knew that they were fighting for something greater than themselves, for a world where no one would be forgotten or oppressed. With each step, Aria felt the power of the Forgotten Throne growing stronger within her, a reminder of the countless generations who had come before her, who had fought and struggled and triumphed in the face of impossible odds. And she knew, deep in her heart, that no matter what lay ahead, she would never give up, never stop fighting for the forgotten and the oppressed, until the light of hope shone bright across the land.